There's something really strange about money. You can be earning more than before, more stable than before, but deep down, you still feel like you're not really okay yet. You still think before you spend. You still hesitate a bit before buying something. It still feels like money is something you constantly have to keep under control. And then you start asking yourself, am I still not doing well financially? I've noticed a lot of people are in this exact situation. But what's interesting is this is often when they're actually doing better than they think. Main idea 1. You don't realize you've improved because money doesn't create a clear feeling. I've noticed something a lot of people misunderstand. They think that once their finances improve, they'll feel different right away. They imagine that one day, they'll wake up and finally feel relaxed about money. No more overthinking. No more second-guessing small decisions. Sounds reasonable. But here's the interesting part. That's not how it actually works. Financial progress doesn't come with a clear, new feeling. It's not like achieving a big milestone. There's no big moment. No, I've made it feeling. It happens quietly. A simple example. Before, as you got closer to the end of the month, you'd start paying more attention, checking how much money you had left, thinking carefully about every small expense. But now, the end of the month comes, and you don't really think about it that much anymore. Not because you suddenly became rich, but because things are stable enough that you don't need to keep checking. Most people don't realize that when a pressure disappears quietly, we often don't even notice it was there. And because we don't notice the change, we assume nothing has changed. That's why so many people have made real financial progress, but still feel like they haven't gotten very far. Main idea 2. When your finances improve, you don't think less, you just worry less. I've noticed a very subtle shift. A lot of people think that when they have more money, they'll stop thinking about it. But interestingly, that rarely happens. You still think, you still consider, you still have moments of hesitation, but the nature of that hesitation changes. Here's a simple example. You're deciding whether to buy something you don't really need. Before, that hesitation came with a clear feeling, a bit tense, a bit anxious. Your mind starts doing the math. If I buy this, will I be short at the end of the month? Do I need to cut back somewhere else to make up for it? Back then, hesitation wasn't really a choice. It was self-protection. But as your finances become more stable, you can still hesitate. It's just, the feeling is much lighter. You're no longer thinking, can I survive this? You start thinking, do I actually want this? Most people don't realize this is a major shift from protecting yourself from risk to choosing based on your preferences and values. You still think about money, but money no longer creates pressure. And because you're still thinking, you assume nothing has changed, when in reality, you're in a completely different place. Main idea 3. The real difference shows up when something unexpected happens. I've noticed. The clearest way to understand your financial situation is not when everything is normal, it's when something unexpected happens. What's interesting is, it's often small situations that reveal the biggest differences. A simple example, on a normal day, you're working, and suddenly you find out something at home is broken. Maybe it's the washing machine, maybe the AC, an expense you didn't plan for. In one version of life, you immediately start thinking, can I patch this for now? Should I delay it a few weeks? If I spend this money now, how do I make up for it? One expense turns into a chain of decisions. Everything starts connecting. But in another version, you handle it simply. Call someone to check it, fix or replace it, pay for it. And then, life just continues as usual. No chain reaction, no major disruption. Most people don't realize this is the real difference. It's not about how much money you have. It's about whether a small problem turns into multiple problems. When your finances are tight, every expense is like a stone dropped into water, creating ripple after ripple. When your finances are stable, the stone still drops, but the water settles quickly. Problems still happen, but they don't break your system anymore. And here's the interesting part. When nothing major happens, you don't realize you're actually doing well. Main idea. 4. When you have financial breathing room, time starts working in your favor. I've noticed something most people don't really pay attention to. It's not that having more money immediately makes life easier. It's that when you have enough financial breathing room, your relationship with time starts to change. That might sound a bit abstract, but it's actually very practical. For example, before, every decision involving money felt urgent. You couldn't wait. You couldn't delay. You couldn't just say, "I'll deal with this later," because even a small delay could cause things to pile up. A bill gets close to its due date, another expense shows up, and suddenly you're rearranging everything just to stay on track. Most people don't realize that when your finances are tight, time is almost always working against you. Every day that passes can make things harder. But when you have financial breathing room, something very different starts to happen. You can wait, not because you're avoiding things, but because you actually have the option to choose when to act. An expense can wait until next week. A decision can sit for a few days. A problem can be handled when you're ready. And most importantly, waiting doesn't create consequences. What's interesting is, this is one of the clearest signs that your finances are no longer fragile. You're no longer forced to react immediately to everything that happens. You become more intentional, not faster, just calmer. But because everything feels smooth, without pressure or urgency, it's easy to think nothing's really changed, when in reality, this is a major shift. Main idea. 5. When your finances become automatic, you stop making constant decisions. I've noticed something really interesting. When your finances aren't stable yet, you're making a lot of money decisions every single day. What should I eat to save money? Should I buy this? Should I renew that subscription? Should I switch to a cheaper plan? Each small decision takes up mental energy, and the interesting part is, the more decisions you have to make, the more mentally drained you become. And when you're drained, your decisions get worse. You might spend emotionally, delay important things, or choose what's easy instead of what's right. Most people don't realize the problem isn't just how much money you have, it's how much you have to manage it. But as your finances become more stable, something important changes. Things start running automatically. For example, your savings get transferred every month without you rethinking it. Your fixed expenses no longer need constant checking. You don't keep asking yourself, "Do I have enough this month?" You just live your life. And interestingly, when the number of decisions goes down, your mind feels a lot lighter, not because you're richer, but because you're controlling less. And because everything feels normal, you don't even realize you've moved past a very stressful phase. Main idea. 6. The dangerous mistake. Trying to feel rich instead of staying stable. I've noticed something a bit paradoxical. Right when your finances start becoming stable, that's actually when you're most likely to make mistakes. For one simple reason, you don't feel like you've made progress. And the interesting part is, people need a clear feeling to believe they're on the right track. But like I said earlier, financial stability doesn't create strong emotions. There's no excitement. No "I made it" moment. And that emotional gap leads people to do something risky. They try to create the feeling of progress. A very common example, you start upgrading your lifestyle, not because you need to, but because you want to feel like you're moving forward. You move to a more expensive place, buy things that feel more deserved, take on long-term financial commitments. At first, everything still feels manageable, but here's the interesting part. These changes happen slowly. There's no obvious moment where you realize you've gone too far, until one day you notice your financial breathing room is gone. You're back to calculating more, being more cautious, reacting faster to every expense. Most people don't realize they don't lose stability from one big decision. They lose it from many small ones made just to feel better. Stability isn't always exciting, but it's the foundation that keeps everything working. And if you trade it for a short-term feeling, you'll have to rebuild from scratch. Conclusion: being financially okay isn't a feeling. It's how things function, I've realized. One of the biggest misconceptions about money is this. We think that when things are okay, we'll feel different. But interestingly, most of the time, you don't feel anything special. You're still you. You still think before spending. You still consider big decisions carefully. Only one thing really changes. Your life gets interrupted less. A problem comes up, and it stays contained. A decision gets made, and it doesn't create a chain of stress afterward. A month goes by, and you're not constantly putting out fires. Most people don't realize this is what it actually looks like when things are working. Not more money, not spending freely, but less pressure, less urgency, less scrambling. And most importantly, you have the ability to choose. Not under pressure, but from a place of calm. If you're at a stage where things don't feel as stressful anymore, but you still don't feel rich, there's a good chance you're doing better than you think. If this video helped you see money more clearly, make sure to like and subscribe, because sometimes understanding money matters a lot more than making more of it.